Hi, so in previous videos we've covered how to get logs from a Cisco codec. We're just going to quickly cover that again and get in a backup and config file, but we're also going to show you how to do this utilizing a tool such as putty via accessing the codec via SSH using the admin account, not the root account, which you cannot access anymore without Cisco tag. So if we bring up the web interface of the codec, you've got two ways of getting a config file. So on the newer firmware, as we previously covered, maintenance, backup and restore, create backup. Not going to go through all the branding, again that is covered in a previous video, but ideally make sure everything's checked, click download backup. Okay, so your other way of doing this is using a program called putty. So if I open putty here, we're going to connect to the IP of the unit and we're going to connect via SSH. However, before I click the open, what we are going to want to do is we are going to want to log the session output. So we'll call this training and then we're going to decide where we want to put this. So I'm going to pop it on my desktop, which is nice and easy. Pop it on my desktop and then if we open the session, click yes, and we're going to log in using the admin credentials, the same that you have used for logging into the system on the web interface. So in the first instance, I tend to ask for an X status of the codec. So that will give you the status of what the codec is doing. Now, this way of doing things is quite old. So the older Cisco MXP units, the older classic units, the old C series units that use the TC firmware, quite often the web interface way of taking a backup was either non-existent or it was unreliable, you couldn't trust it. So this was the best way to do it. So if you're working on an older system, this is probably the best way to do it. So it's a nice and simple command. Just type in xconfig and hit enter, and that will take the configuration out of the system. So if you close putty down, close the session, it'll automatically save, and you'll see I've got a notepad file on my desktop. Now, what you can do with this is, if you do it correctly, so if we take our X status here, which is prefixed with a *S to let you know it's an X status. So if we select all of that and scroll right the way back up to the top, take all of that out and hit delete here. Okay, so the other bit we don't want is this bit. So the xconfig, remember the X status had a *C as a prefix, xconfig, sorry, had a *S, xconfig has a *C. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a replace. So we're going to find *C and replace it with nothing. So if you were to take that text file and put it back into the codec through putty, it wouldn't do anything because it doesn't recognize the wildcard C as the prefix. So if we click replace all and close, now specifically on the older units, for this one, what you would do is you would go to edit, select all. Oh, we'll take that bit out at the bottom as well. Doesn't particularly matter, but we'll get that out there. So edit, select all, edit and copy. Now before we paste this in, what it will allow you to do is you can edit the config on this file. So let's say you've got, let's say you want to change, we're going to change the quas value on this. So we're just going to change the quas value to 11 from 34. So we've changed it to 11, and again we'll do a select all, edit and copy. So if I do this, we bring the web interface back up and we go to configuration. Go to network, scroll right the way down to the bottom. You see we've got Cisco standard AF41, which is a DSCP value of 34 and set to diff serve on the QoS settings. Okay, if we go back in to SSH, we don't need to log the output this time. It's always wise to log everything, but I'm not going to do that on this occasion. And what I'm going to do, instead of putting the whole config file in, I'm just going to grab the bits that I want. So we scroll back up to the QoS settings we want there. So if I take those and right click and copy and go to the putty window and right click, and there you go, it's pasted it in. So if we go back to the web interface now, where we had everything as 35, we reload that web page. It's always wise to reboot after you've made a config change as well. There you go, you see all the values have changed to 11. So again, we can do this vice versa. So if I change all of these to 34 again, and copy them out, I've just done a Control C there, go back to the putty window, right click, pops them back in again, and if we come back to the web interface and reload, you will see there it's changed all but the one I missed, so we'll correct that in the web interface. So DSCP34 gives you AF41 QoS, which is what is recommended for Cisco telepresence. Okay, there you go.